Good morning, everybody. My name is Lindy. I work with Cybrin on behalf of Cybrin and IIG. We're very happy to have you join our webinar session. We're going to be looking after you for the next hour. I want to quickly run through the running order. I'm going to hand you over to the president of the IIG, Thabo, which is going to be followed by a guest speaker, Karabo. I know you're going to be enlightened by Karabo's presentation. And then we're going to have a question and answer session. And yes, that's about it for today. We certainly hope the load shedding gods and the Zoom gods are with us, that we can have a seamless webinar. If there are one or two glitches, please bear with us. All that remains is please get a cup of coffee, tea, water, whatever's going to make you comfortable. And we hope you enjoy what we have in store.
Thank you, Lindy, and welcome everyone. So let's talk about revolution. A revolution means a changing of the guard. It means that today's leaders are not tomorrow's leaders. It is a reset of the world order, or a disruption of the world order, if you prefer. The fourth industrial revolution presents Africa with a unique opportunity to leapfrog and subsequently step into our rightful place in the greater global economy. A revolution is upon us, and disruption is the order of the day. And we need to understand that this change it will inevitably lead to changes in the way in which we work, something we've already seen. We need to learn how to ride this wave, both as businesses and individuals. Learning, unlearning, and relearning refers to the process of ditching outdated skills and techniques and diversifying your skill set. It is crucial that you constantly learn, unlearn, and relearn to reinvent yourself in the modern world in order to keep up with the increasing complexity of the changing demands. I love this quote from Karabo. She says, "Change is not personal, it is inevitable. The key is to see it as an opportunity, and while there is time, learn from it. Take those lessons and build a better, stronger future." Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of the IIG Insights. Today, we are proud to partner with Cybrin, and I must say that Cybrin has also been assisting the IIG in its own digital transformation journey, and it is only fair that they impart some of this knowledge to the industry as a whole. Before we get going, I'd like to remind you all that CPD certificates will be available within a week of this webinar. Please don't forget to log on to the IIG CPD Vault to access your CPD certificates. A recording of this webinar will also be available on the CPD Vault. And finally, if you or your organization would like to lead one of these thought leadership sessions, please contact the IIG at info@iig.co.za or visit our website, www.iig.co.za. I'm very proud to introduce our speaker today. Karabo is a dynamic businesswoman and the CEO of Cybrin South Africa, a software development business enabling business drive and digital transformation, not only in South Africa, but globally. She is the board member at Cybrin Collab Project Implementation and Unleash Institute. Karabo also, interestingly enough, recently developed an app called Amina that leverages technology to strengthen the fight against gender-based violence. She has a passion for unleashing Africa into the fourth industrial revolution and seeing women in particular use technology to further their opportunities. She has a unique way of disrupting traditional thinking, breaking the cycles of inaction, and driving sustained results. With her in-depth understanding of strategy, operational management, project management, and change, she is able to bring simplicity and appropriate execution plans to change the status quo. She is a powerhouse and a relevant voice in this era, transcending color, gender, and age. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to be disrupted. Karabo, over to you.
Thank you so much, Thabo and to the IIG and your members for this opportunity to present to you. Colleagues, as Thabo said, I have a passion to, really urge on and equip and empower Africans to take their place in this time. And I can tell you, even as we have this conversation today, that the most critical response to what is happening around us, and I'm going to unpack that, is each of us, as we think about our personal development, have to now learn, unlearn, and relearn. How I want to do this today is really looking at 3 dimensions. First and foremost, it's imperative that you and I settle that we are living in a changing world. And for that, I want to just once again, let's just land and align around the disruptive forces, the disruptive technologies that we're particularly seeing in insurance. And we cannot ignore the current business strategies of South African organizations that are shaping what we're beginning to see in the landscape today. In that, we're seeing the change in the nature of work. And I want to share with you some of the key themes that we're seeing that are driving that change, and possibly what the future of work is already beginning to be transformed into and look like. And the most important question for me and discussion we need to have is, how do you and I respond? And I want to go back to the career S-curve. Some of you might have seen this, but I want to just reflect on that in disruptive times, and really importantly, come back to then what do you and I do? I'm speaking to you as a fellow colleague, also just participating not only in the insurance sector, but in the South African market. And I'm hoping somewhere you'd be inspired and be challenged together with myself to also future-proof ourselves for what is happening. Let's look at this changing business landscape. Now, you know that disruption is the order of the day. We've seen this, and this is not a new phenomenon that arrived at least 2 years ago as we entered the COVID-19 pandemic. But going as far back, and if some of you can remember, as that we had that financial crisis, 2008, and we had financial crisis part 2. In South Africa in particular, we've seen disruptions, civil unrest. Almost now, it was the 1-year anniversary recently, what we saw in KZN. What's come out of the Zondo Commission is affecting lots of processes and how we think about good governance in business. As a software company, one of things we're thinking about now that we're seeing is the great resignation that's impacting the world. And just the job that you and I have to do now is the job of 2 or 3 people. And to our conversation today, that the 4th industrial revolution is really ushered in and has accelerated what we call the digital revolution. I love, Thabo, how you described and explained what a revolution is. This is not going gently into the night, ladies and gentlemen. Whether you can feel it or seeing, it is fundamentally disrupting things. Disruption is the order of the day. Now, perhaps that seems a bit more macro and out there, but also the nature of work and how we work and deliver work is changing as well. And I want to just, if you can take a walk down memory lane with me, and we just look at some of the evolutions of the technologies we've been using in the workplace. Depending if you are born super free, you might not know some of these. But if you think back, once upon a time, ladies and gentlemen, some of you might not know, we had a thing called the typewriter that really started entering into the markets around the 1950s. We saw some changes in the way people worked. We started having cassette tapes, which allowed dictaphones and electronic typewriters as well. And thank God we got to a point where we started getting devices. Again, depending on when you work, some of us started working in these age-old PCs. We had these drives that sat under our desks, but it meant we couldn't take work home. You really had to sit and work. And to really more what we see today. So in 1991, the internet became a little bit more broader based, and ushered in what we see now as laptop and this mobility and ability to work from anywhere. In that bottom right, you're seeing those Google glasses that, as the theme of the fourth industrial revolution, the coming together of man and technology, seamlessly integrating to deliver services. We've seen some of those. By the way, they're manufacturing houses and specifically mining that are already beginning to play around with things like Google glasses. So it's not only macro evolution, but in the way you and I work and execute is really being fundamentally just looking very different. They're disruptive technologies we're seeing in every sector. If I just think of insurance as an example, when I talk about disruptive technologies, I've just put a definition here. It's really any technology that, by its introduction, it fundamentally displaces the way we used to deliver services and whatever technologies also. It disrupts both the tech that we use, but the processes and how we interact with them. And we know this. COVID was a great accelerator and introduction of working differently. And your sector, ladies and gentlemen, is already being transformed, if not disrupted by these. And I've just put some examples there for you to think about. So big data is really being used around modeling risk and really profiling products for customers, right? So that's one. In insurance, we're seeing a lot of usage-based products now that's coming. So you almost pay as you use or risk-based. And a good example of that we really liked was, if you're insuring your car, you only insure it for when you drive it. While you're still at home, it's not insured. So there's lots of tech making that possible for us. IoT devices as well. So things like sensors that are used on products and on products to be able to really begin to assess the depreciation or risk of those, and then attaching a premium and risk around it. And this is not just conceptual. This is live and well in the sector and already being applied. It's already disrupting how we understand risk, insurance, and delivery of services. And I've just pulled out some use cases that we're seeing in South Africa. I think there's a few that are worth mentioning. I think one that's excited me, and it's already now a couple of years that we saw, was the use of drones to assess claims. And in particular, what we saw when we had the civil unrest in insurers, a number of insurers went out and were using drones in particular to really go and look at some of the factories and assess those. So if you think about it, at some point there would be an investigator, an assessor that would have to go to the accident site or the place to fill out and take a view. Now drones are playing that part. And Old Mutual really were the first ones in South Africa that went with this. The discovery use case, most of you already have this for yourselves. This is IoT, or what we call telemetrics, where it's called Vitality Drive, where you put there's a sensor in your car that is collecting data on how you drive, how you accelerate, braking, and all of that. And based on that, you either then get a discount around your premium. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's getting to a place where those IoT devices will be the basis of the premium you pay. Because, you've heard the age-old saying, there's a theory that young men are higher risk than a lot of us ladies. And so now we want to tailor premiums to those individuals, and things like IoT are doing it. So Momentum uses, if you think about gamification, there's what they've got a solution called active days. So depending on the number of days you've been active, you'll then get a result. So the disruptive technologies are beginning to really come into how we think about insurance. It is not it's not a concept that us technologists and software companies are geeking about. It is here. Not only is our disruptive forces. Not only is the way we work, but even our industry is being disrupted. I can tell you now, organizations, the ones you work in, and a lot of our customers are rethinking their strategy. And I've just pulled out 3 companies as an example in South Africa. I know they're not exclusively in insurance, but I do this to let you know, to give you a point that even organizations are rethinking their whole corporate strategy using the lens of the 4th industrial revolution and disruption as well. And just an example, I mean, Standard Bank with their strategy called Ambition 2025, where they're seeing themselves as a platform business, where they are able to provide products beyond just banking services to their clients. Now, if you're in the sector, this should be relevant and of interest for you, because what this means is that there are other industries that are looking to be the extension or the medium in which you produce your products. I mean, Vodacom is just another example where they, in one of the pillars, is about building a digital society. And this matters. We see this as telcos are in our clients. This matters because telcos are definitely expanding the business model beyond just data and airtime. And they getting into financial services as well, whether it's banking products, or as in loans, but also insurance products as well. In the mines, we're seeing things like future spot mining. Very, very important to note is that most JSE listed organizations are going through that cycle. We'll see this 2023, 24, and 25, where there's a strategy refresh. And what that means is that in the market, we're now waiting to see a very deliberate expression around digital. Most of you already, I could imagine, are already participating in those exercises. Colleagues, in case you cannot see the writing on the wall, it is not business as usual. As you and I think about skills development, as you and I think about how do we future-proof ourselves, this is not the moment and the time for you and I to be sitting back and waiting to see where things go. It has become imperative that we take our careers into our hands, understanding the disruption that is happening at a macro level, right down to our roles. And in that context, for me, it's important that we have this conversation. So let's look at the change in the nature of work before we get into how you and I respond. I have to share this video. Don't worry, there is no sound. But for me, it expresses how I see a lot of professionals are currently engaging with their work. We're so caught up in work politics and dynamics. We're so caught up in the execution of our work. And we're so caught up in the old accolades that we have that make us these leaders and managers, that we're not taking a minute to look up. And if for once we had looked up, we would have seen that lion that's in the room that is already approaching us. This is the disruption of the nature of work, both as we execute in our industry as well as in the world. And if we are caught sleeping, we ourselves will find ourselves as prey. I don't mean to scare you, but I mean, and I guess this is why you are here and are connected with IIG to develop your skills. There are enough forces that are actively putting pressure to think differently about the future of work. And this stems firstly from what customers expect. You've been part of the conversation around the new normal that happened post-COVID. And we now, as the impacts of COVID and the legislation and the rules are beginning to be drawn back, most of us are looking to see where do we go from here. What your customers expect from service, I can tell you now, they will never go back. They are not going back. So even as you deliver and execute your service, by the way, think about this, whether you're internal to the organization or external, has fundamentally changed. Our risk models, how we deal with claims, how we engage with customers and partners is already disrupted, and we cannot return. We're very clear in working with organizations to think about the digital roadmap, that the way in which work now needs to be done has to be accelerated, and that affects you and I. I just want to share some data with you that I think is, again, to drive the point home around the change in the nature of work that you and I execute, that I believe is very relevant for us. It's been so fascinating for me to observe how we often look at ourselves in South Africa and in the continent, and we watch disruption and transformation and changes from afar and think that it is not our reality. That gap has closed. If you look on the left, the view is that if everyone on this webinar, that at least 50% of the activities you do can be automated right now with the current technologies that we have, not even some of the innovative work that we are doing. And that even at 6 out of 10 occupations, so if you think of all the job categories in insurance, 6 out of 10 of those, even those, about 30% of those activities are not even relevant to be executed at all. And here we're just even talking about just automation. I'm sure for some of you that's an absolute relief. It is to me. Because when we think about automation, we're just thinking about it, and maybe to assist you, think about all the repetitive copy and paste, you doing it the same way over and over again. That is the aspects of your job that can easily be automated and done by technical solutions today. But the view on the right is that even if just at a 50% probability of adoption of technology, already 30% of the workforce run the risk of being displaced, and new job categories will be created. Now, this is what organizations are going to have to grapple with when we think about the ability to fill the demand for the changing nature of work that needs to be done. I don't want to have this conversation outside of context. And, if one of the things I strongly encourage each of you to go read for yourself is the World Economic Forum report, the Future of Job Reports. They release it every year, and it's one of the things I follow and read intently. And as a person who wants to future-proof themselves and are looking forward, I really challenge you to go dig in. But at the highest level, already in 2025, the skills required look very different. So if you look on the left, they fall in the categories of problem solving, working with people, being able to manage yourself, and most importantly, what we call, digital adaptability or understanding technology. What is fascinating as we look at the future of work, it's no longer the technical skills that we are worried about or that will be the differentiator. A lot of that, again, will be automated, and a lot of that can be taught. However, what's going to be a scarce commodity is problem solving, analytical thinking, creativity. And again, think about the complexity of the problems you are trying to fix in your organization. They're needing more holistic thinking to be able to come with the right solutions. The data is there that at least 40% of the current workforce, you and I, in the next couple of years, will require different skills. And more importantly for me, at least half the workforce must be reskilled. In the past, when the nature of work changed, typically where lots of organizations will go to and find graduates and young skills and bring them into the organization and start training them up in what is required or the future demand of the work. But this cannot be the answer, ladies and gentlemen, in our environment. Just if we take the 2020 stat today, this was 2020 stats, that only 1.7 million South Africans have got degrees And you and I know it's still a thing. There are lots of our organizations, at least for white collar jobs, are looking for degrees. And at the same time, we have this tension where there's a lot of immigration and those numbers are coming up, and some of that includes skilled labor. So what does this mean? And this part is the part that excites me, is that the only sure way for the organizations to meet the future demand for skills is going to be reskilling and upskilling their current workforce. So this is not a doom and gloom scenario. There are no graduates that organizations are going to pull. They're not going to go somewhere in the rest of the world and try get those skills because there isn't enough globally. They're going to have to look within the organization. And this is a point, if in your organization, whether you're a manager or an employee, I would already start having those conversations within the organization to say, what programs do we have running? What are we doing to make sure that one can plug into it to consider future skills? You guys might have heard this, but what we're seeing now and the change and the disruption we're seeing now brings about both an inconvenience, but it brings an opportunity. For those of you that are hungry to accelerate your career, that are looking to do something more and be relevant and really just leapfrog for yourselves, but also leapfrog your business, your department, this is the time right now. Someone somewhere is going to have to solve the demand that we're seeing. So how do we respond? And this is where I want to really just spend a bit of time with you and possibly, really support and challenge you in this, right? So one of my favorite quotes ever is the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn, right? And this is going to be the order of the day. If you're to ask me, Karabo, how do I respond? How do I future-proof myself? How do I future-proof my team and my organization? I know most of you will immediately go and look for what are the technical skills and competencies we need to follow, we need to focus on. That where we are in the journey of the fourth industrial revolution is that is being shaped as we go. So, but it is those that arrive at the challenge and are agile and open-minded enough to learn new skills, to unlearn old ways, and to relearn those things that have worked for them that are going to make it into this environment, right? I want to share with you what we've seen, and I hope some of you have seen this before. If not, it's something I've always appreciated and pondered with, which is a career S-curve, and then there's big literature around this. How most of us think and see our careers is you start up in your career and you go through this dip because you don't know what's going on, and you have this period where you have this steep learning curve. And by the way, this could be as you're starting your working career, but it could also be when you step into a new department and a new area. You have a steep learning curve where you're acquiring new skills, and you get to a place in the top of your career where you already know how to do your work and you can do it with your eyes closed. And typically what we see in that space is people are getting bored and really start slowing down. And that's the best place for you either to move to a completely new challenge or switch careers so that you can start your career to a new career trajectory. That is no longer the case. And that's not what's happening right now at all, right? Right now, what we're seeing instead is that careers midway are being disrupted as we speak. Whatever your focus is, and you've maybe moved in, you're a new actuary, or you've moved into a different management area or different function, as you're trying to figure out how to become an expert in your role or an SME, you are being disrupted right now through technology. That's exactly what's happening as we speak. And that change is happening real time in your career. Therefore, you do not have the luxury of continuing in that place. But you almost have to already start the work to build yourself in this new career trajectory. And it is without a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, it is responding to digital. Companies today are going to have to partner with employees for upskilling and reskilling themselves for the future. This has become urgent. In industries like yourselves, like what we see in insurance, you might be aware, but insurance has been one of the industries that's been a little bit slower in embracing a lot of the disruptive technologies, and in many ways has lagged in its business model as well as delivery of services to their clients. And we've seen some beautiful innovation that's coming now. What that means, though, is that through the pressure of disruption, by the time your organizations have to respond, it's going to be steep and fast. So the challenge of upskilling and reskilling will wake up one day, and it will be urgent because the nature of the cost of delivering services will be too expensive to be competitive. How your customers expect your products will be outdated and at risk of being disrupted by insurtechs and fintechs and telcos. And more importantly, just to offer amazing careers and opportunities for employees will also need to be relevant. Now, you might be saying, okay, but how does that work? How do organizations think about this? How should we be responding? And I just want to share one example of an organization in South Africa that's seen the writing on the wall and is responding through the marriage and the partnership of company and employee. Most of you know Standard Bank, one of our tier 1 banks in South Africa. Standard Bank has made a strategic decision to use Salesforce. Salesforce is a cloud-based solution, cloud-based application, specifically looking at really around the customer relation and delivery of services, giving them a 360 view. They've selected that as core to their strategy. And what's happened is that what Standard Bank has done is they've taken 80% of their workforce and has registered all of them to be certified on this software application, on the Salesforce platform. And today, about 20,000 of the employees are Ranger status. So this is the top status when it comes to certification in Salesforce. Now, this is a whole organization. So if you think about it, the bank teller, the driver, the mailman, the relationship banker, everybody has had to be certified. In Sim Shabalala, the CEO's view is that there is no role that is not being disrupted by technology. Therefore, I've got to take everyone along in already helping them learn new skills and unlearn the old way of delivering services and engaging with their customer. This is fundamental. And what is beautiful in the Standard Bank story is that the CEO himself was one of the first few people that went through his certification and got Ranger status. This is the kind of response that is required as organization when we think about reskilling for the future. Now, it's okay if your organization is not yet thinking about this. Trust me, give it a moment. They will have to. But it is your responsibility to yourself and to be valuable to your industry, and importantly for us to be valuable to our country and keeping us relevant and competitive to start this journey. So how do you do it? Learn, unlearn, and relearn. I want to start with unlearning because I think this is probably going to be the hardest of journeys. My team and I come to organization and are implementing solutions and technologies that are accelerating a lot of companies' digital transformation journey. And it's always fascinating to see that the hardest part of the implementation is not the tech, but it's oftentimes the employees themselves that are struggling with the transformation. And for me, that speaks to unlearning. I want to challenge all of us in this webinar as colleagues that when we talk about unlearning, the first thing I think we need to unlearn is self-identity. most of us that have been working have built a brand around some of the things we can do, specialist in this area or know this topic, and are holding on so dearly to that identity that even when disruption and technology that demands of us to do things differently and start again comes, we push against it, that it cannot be done, it shouldn't be that way, because it fundamentally challenges us as professionals to think about, who are we again? All of us have to unlearn the old us and the brand and our careers and define a new strategy and identity. We're going to have to unlearn some knowledge and assumptions. And I love this around Thomas Watson. You know, when we're thinking about the computers, this computer is available to every man. You know, his view then, he was the IBM president. He said, I think there's a world market of maybe 5 computers. Ha, 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 right? Please, you know, some of us have many assumptions around our products. I mean, you know, just even if I think around from an insurance perspective, lots of us are thinking maybe a particular LSM don't want, don't want solutions on their mobile apps. Who said that, right? Maybe it might not be on a mobile app, but it might be through WhatsApp, as an example. Lots of us still think, but people want to talk to an agent. Who said that? We have to, because we don't understand your product. They're too complex, right? So there's assumptions we've made around our customers, our service, our businesses, the market, ourselves, that don't work. Some of us have to shed skills that no longer serve us. I mean, I think about this. One of the areas that fascinates me is around leadership. And I'm challenged as a CEO and as a leader. If you've been in the market so long, you know, there's certain things we've learned around how to lead, you know, and now at how to manage people. And working remotely forced us to get out of this task-based way of managing individuals and are forced now to build trust and build self-sufficient teams, how we do performance management, how do we deliver, all of that. They no longer serve us. Some of you learned or believe that to be the manager, you need to know everything. In a world of proliferation of knowledge and where technology does it, you don't need to. Collaboration is now key. The first thing you need to do if you want to future-proof yourself before thinking about any technical skills is you've got to unlearn. The next important thing is there are things you and I are going to have to learn. Ladies and gentlemen, digital literacy is not an option. We're going to have to learn, and then I want you to just at the most basic level, type in your career and you know, go on Google, type your job title and search for technologies that are relevant for my job title. And it's imperative that you understand that technology, like what Standard Bank is doing with Salesforce. One of the important things is computational thinking, and this is big. When we talk about computational thinking, we're talking about your ability to understand patterns, to decode patterns, to take abstract information and make sense of it, to decompose packages of work. You know, it's one of the most frustrating things we want to, every now and then I hear the comment that these people are not thinking. The relevance of work in the future, what differentiates us, what's going to be our part in the marriage of between man and machine is that we will do the thinking and the decision-making enabled and augmented by technology. You're going to have to learn that. If you're sitting in your role today and all you do is non-thinking work, copying and pasting, and by the way, even at the executive level, you must create space and time to perfect thinking, decision-making, dealing with complexity as well, right? Emotional intelligence. I'm so fascinated by the way, in our organization, we deliberately hire young people, and it's been fascinating to see how they don't all arrive with emotional intelligence anymore. But it's imperative. This is going to be, we're going to have to run courses again, even to even your members around emotional intelligence, our ability, because a lot of the back office processes are automated, it creates opportunity for you and I to be in the face of our customers now in the market. There's no such thing as someone sitting at the back anymore. And that we need emotional intelligence. They're definitely things that you and I are going to have to unlearn, relearn as well. If you were born in 1953, like the rest of us, we were taught to learning for us meant road learning. I don't know what the right English word is, excuse me, but we call that crema, parrot fashion stuff. An exam was how much of that could you cram in your head. That's not how we learn now. Lots of us, when we think about learning, and a lot of you are thinking, oh, I've got to go register for a degree or certification, and it's going to take you 3 years. Learning techniques now, ladies and gentlemen, are going to be short courses that allow you to go straight into the job real time and implement that as you go. We're going to have to learn how to be curious again. If you've been working too long, you're now just you're not asking enough questions. One of the biggest skills on the future of work is being able to ask questions, being curious. Something we're going to need to relearn. This one's very big for me, and maybe it's because of my challenge. And we work with a lot of leadership teams that are driving strategy, and we're enabling it, is managing and leading in a digital world. We're looking at remote teams. We're looking at an era where we don't have all the information and knowledge, and we're going to have to figure that out. I'm going to end with a thought, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to future-proof yourself in times of disruption, you must embrace learning, unlearning, and relearning. Practically, I want you to become alert and focus on the changing trends. I want you to go back and pay attention to your business strategy. And I can tell you, we're working with enough insurers now to know that they're all fundamentally rethinking their strategy. I want you to go and look at what's happening in the role. I want you to think of what's happening in the market. Pay attention. Subscribe on LinkedIn. Participate in forums like IIG. Follow individuals that are talking about these changing trends. Then consistently challenge your bias. So if you think it cannot be done, if you think it shouldn't be done that way, it most possibly, because of the advent of technology and what's possible, it can be. I want you to develop a growth mindset. And the growth mindset comes with humility that says, I actually might not know everything there is to know. And so my posture to what's happening around me is one of, I want to learn. I want to be better. Most of us are so busy that we don't have time to practice this. And I've been consciously now, I've enrolled on a course. I'm listening to books because I'm sitting here thinking, I know I can be better and I should be, right? And if anything, ask as many questions. Ask silly questions, ask clever questions, ask irrelevant questions, ask questions. And the last one, I think that's been a game changer for myself into making sure that I remain relevant is expand your network. The probabilities that your network, whether it's friends, whether it's colleagues, think the same as you. That's why you're all together. And so there isn't that you're not exposing yourself potentially to new ways of thinking. So you must expand yourself. I mean, part of what you get here is the ability to collaborate. And I want to challenge you as you engage in these forums, find those people, poke them, meet them for coffee, ask for virtual meetings. There's something in that that's going to collide you with your next opportunity to upskill yourself, opportunity to bring value to your department and business. I know most of you were coming here looking for very specific technical things. It's because this is not where we are right now. It starts with the change and the transformation of how we see ourselves and how we see what's going on around us. And for that, we have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Some of you might know David Bowie. He's a singer, so I have to pay homage to him. And if I can quote him, he says, "The future belongs to those who see it coming." And I hope, if anything, through this conversation, it's allowed you to lift your head just a little bit to see that things are changing, and for you to hunger and see the urgency to begin to make sure that you future-proof yourself, your team, and your organization to respond to the disruption. Thank you, Thabo.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Karabo. That was very insightful. And just reading some of the comments that have come through in the chat, I can tell that you are expanding a lot of minds with some of the comments that you've shared with us today. And like most of the people that are attending this webinar today, I myself probably was expecting to learn something about blockchain and data analytics, etc. But certainly your presentation kind of opened my mind, and I think about, you know, when we moved into work from home following the lockdown. You know, a lot of the technologies that we started using were there already. They were kind of waiting for us to exploit, and yet in most cases we were not, because for whatever reason, and something had to change before we could actually start to use those various technologies. And so your point that it's not the technology, it's us that needs to change first. I think it kind of hit home for that reason. And also some of the insights that you shared about how to learn, which is, you know, firstly maybe let go of some of the things that you hold dear, and maybe that speaks to the unlearning, the curiosity a bit, which I think is important, and with curiosity I believe comes humility, and also finally, you know, having conversations. Well, these days we have conversations with LinkedIn Learning, but also have conversations with other colleagues as well. So that was really, really powerful. And we have some comments here, some questions that I'd like you to get into, and guys, please keep them coming as well. I think we do have some time to get through some of them. So I think this one has maybe pretty much, I think you've answered it, but I'll ask it anyway again. But there's one of the attendees is maybe a little bit overwhelmed with everything that's happening in the world. So they're saying that there's so much out there that, you know, that they don't know where to start, and they want to know how to begin this journey, and now speaking as an individual. Your thoughts, Karabo?
No, absolutely. I think, you know, besides the work you've got to do in your head, I'm going to suggest two things. Firstly, and Thabo, I know we want to be clever. So if it's okay, I want to be just not clever, but be real. The first thing I want to encourage people is you've got to embrace technology. You cannot be part of a change that you have not embraced. And so in every aspect of your life, bring technology in. I'm fascinated people are still going to the shops and not ordering online, as an example, because there's something in that user experience and being part of it that's going to trigger you to think around, how are you servicing your client around insurance products? How are you, all of that. So you've got to, guys, at the most basic level, embrace tech beyond maybe just social media, but let it disrupt your life a little. You know, we talk about applications like Teams, and, you know, people are still writing notes on paper. Just try out a few things. That's the first one. Then the secondly, I really want to encourage people to take their job title and search, because, you know, first world and oftentimes leads and changes first before we see it. So if you're an accountant or auditor, just go type in, you always safe in saying accounting 4.0. So everything is 4.0, industry 4.0, insurance 4.0, but you can say accounting 4.0, or say the future of accounting. What that's going to do is going to show you how accounting looks in the future, what you will no longer be doing, right? So machine learning, for example, is affecting, so no month end in the future, guys, right? Using machine learning will reallocate and assign and all of that. So understand that. And as you read about that, you'll realize what accountants now do. And then I would get a short course or something that is already doing that, teaches that skill. So you'll see accountants now are going to focus more on analytics. PFMA. So analyzing and reporting and more, and trends analysis and that kind of stuff. So I would then take training around that. But also then with that, understanding how technology is going to change your profession, you can already start getting those efficiencies. So automating, look at some of the free tech and bring that into your way of work. Because what then happens is by the time your company then wants to experiment with transforming accounting, either through a solution that they bring in, you're the first person that's going to put up their hands because you've been doing it somewhat, right? So big for me on a personal level, embrace tech. Secondly, just take your career search. And then I think the last one, which I just mentioned now, please, 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 any opportunity at work to be part of any innovation that is for IR, put your hand up. Even if you feel you're overworked, you're uninterested, put your hand up because you're getting the first plane ticket to the future.
Wow. Yeah, and cheers to the first plane ticket to the future. But you spoke about embracing technology, and I get the sense that many of us still have this this fear of technology, and maybe this kind of explains why one of our participants is asking this question. So does this mean that does this all mean that unemployment is going to grow and the poor are going to get poorer and the middle class will get poorer and there will only be a few elite? So
oh my
I think reflecting maybe this thinking around what technology means. But your comments, please, Garab.
It feels like a trick question. I don't know. Okay, I hope not. And Thabo, as long as at least you and I are here, no way. Yeah, we're gonna beat on that thing up until we find a way. I think what we do, what IIG is doing, and what we are about is looking at how do we take everyone along. Just to give everyone comfort, and I'm going to use an example of what we have in our organization, is that the beauty of technology now is that it's allowing, believe it or not, more people to come in. So we've got AI, some AI solutions, and we are taking unemployed students that have got no tech background, that are not digital at all, and they're the ones that are working on our machine learning solution because they don't need tech. It covers it. So we should not have that scenario because, and people must just draw a distinction between the disruptive technology we see now and maybe what we had about 5-10 years ago. That thing was complicated. You needed a degree to work on SAP. Right? I'm not going to name any more names. But the solutions now are intuitive. They are user-friendly even for organizations. A lot of the technologies and applications we've seen. By that, it should give us a bit more comfort that if we are intentional, we can bring in a lot more people. But I would certainly still encourage everyone on the call to be proactive in upskilling themselves.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, Karabo. I think when we spoke about revolution, it naturally meant that there's a change. So,
yes.
So the guys that are comfortable right now better get uncomfortable because things are changing and the order of things will be disrupted. So and I think what you shared with us is how to be the disruptor and not just the disrupted. If I can call it that. Yeah. And I think maybe this is maybe less of a question, but I think someone was, and you might have answered this already, just a comment from one of the participants around, the pathway to learning, and then just commenting on how, we have to learn new things. Sometimes the content is not free. LinkedIn Learning, only parts of it is free. But I think what the participant is appreciating is that your advice has kind of helped tremendously to establish a framework, though, with which to work through. And maybe what you've also shared about how, just Googling is enough. There's a lot of free content out there that anyone has access to. I think also maybe speaks to that.
Absolutely. There is a view that perhaps content is not so freely available, but it actually is. So I'll give you a silly example. Every interesting book, before I buy it, because books just got expensive all of a sudden, is I take the author and I go straight to YouTube and I Google the author and that book. Oftentimes that author has given a whole lecture freely available around that topic, right? But also forums like Udemy, Coursera, all of those. And I'll take Udemy as an example because I live there. Every other day, they've got a special where all the courses are 199 Rand. And I could probably afford maybe a 500 Rand course, but I'm the one, I'm on the mailing list. When it's 199, I'm the one, and I buy 4 or 5 and I take time. So believe it or not, it is available because it's Google, but also it's not as inaccessible as possible. Perhaps maybe the certifications are. And what I encourage my team is go do the training. When you're ready to write the exam, come to me and give me the case. And maybe that's a tip for a lot of people here. Do the work and then approach your organization, not to take you to a course, but to certify, because that's everything else is available.
Powerful, powerful. And thanks for also mentioning Udemy, because I think one of the questions from the chat was about Udemy. Maybe a question around blue ocean strategy. I think Sam Mukwena wants to know, would you recommend the blue ocean strategy as an option for disruption within career and organizational strategy? Just maybe your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So some of you that might not know Blue Ocean strategy, basically the premise is strategically you go to spaces that there are no competitors, there's no one else, and so competition becomes irrelevant. So Sam, not sounding intelligent, but just speaking as colleagues, for me, I don't think that's relevant anymore. I think that made sense a couple of years ago. Why? Because every industry, there's room for rethinking and redesign what you do today in the sector that you're doing it today. In insurance, Pineapple is one of the young set of guys that have come in. And all Pineapple did is they started using a different model to create insurance targeting young people. So the products are still the same, the target market is still the same, but they reimagined the basis of the product as well as delivery. So I think perhaps maybe organizations don't need to go too far today to find more competitive margin. All they need to do is transform how they do what they do using digital as an advantage. By the way, that same principle I think is relevant for your career. You don't have to switch and pivot career. Perhaps today, if your job takes you 100%, then there's no room for you to add value. Personally, why don't you automate what you do personally for yourself? Use Excel formulas, use free applications. And so the remaining 50% is you consider how coming up with ideas, running projects, being part of tech implementations in your department to create that value. There's enough disruption in what we do for people to really distinguish themselves. That's my view, Sam. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Karabo. And I see we are running out of time, but I cannot let you get out of here without answering one question that sparked a lot, at least for me, when I was reading your bio, sparked a lot of curiosity. And that is how technology can be used in the fight against gender-based violence. How did you even make that connection? Maybe a final word with that, and then I'll allow you to close. Yeah.
Oh man, and I mean, most people know we've seen many high-profile cases, and it's really been tough in our nation. And I think that the logic, that what clicked for me is that for most potential victims, this is the one thing that is in the room when things happen. This is the one thing, perhaps. So the police are not in the room, maybe friends are not in the room, but this is there. So how do we use this device to record, to call and to create an alert, and more importantly, to be your point of counsel, knowledge, information, if you find yourself in that situation. Because this here, no one can see it coming.
Wow. Wow, amazing, amazing. And I think that's part of what learning is about, also making connections between, what you know, what you already know, and what it is that you are learning. And the two might seem disparate and non-related, but because you've learned both, you can maybe find connections that other people have not yet discovered. So that's quite a powerful example. Thank you very much, Karabo, for your time. And thank you all for attending. We've gone a little bit over, but as I mentioned before, this recording will be available on our CPD Vault. Please, you can also get your CPD certificate there. And we have these insight sessions throughout the year. So go to our website as well to register for the next ones. But for now, I'd just like to say thank you, Cyprian, for sponsoring this session and for lending us Karabo, who shared some really valuable insights about learning, unlearning, and relearning for our industry. So thank you all and goodbye.